that leaves us, members, to our next well-known submitter and the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, the Right Honourable Simon Upton. We are looking forward to this, Mr. Upton. Have we got you online?
You have, as far as I know.
Very good. We look forward to your 10 minutes. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Look, one of my jobs is to advise you on the consequences of laws and regulations for the environment, and that's all I'm concerned with here. And in this case, I think those consequences are very unclear. It's, in my view, never a good idea to place words on the statute book that you can't define or you don't know how far they go. And unfortunately, the bill seeks to legislate for rights and liberties whose limitations are simply undefined. We don't know what limits apply to these rights and liberties in Clause 8 in relation to public resources like air, water, soil, biodiversity. You'll appreciate there's a lot of environmental regulation, and the reason for that is it's in public ownership or management, and so you need to actually manage it, and to do that you need laws and regulations. This bill is all about private rights and liberties, and we simply don't know how they intersect with those public resources. Now, look, it's not my job to spell out the limitations. That's your job. Actually, Principle 1 of this bill says that the law should be clear. Well, I think it'd be a good place to start, at least with respect to the environment, being clear how far these private rights and liberties go. But look, if you haven't got the time to do that, and I appreciate you probably don't, then I suggest, as you'll know from my written submission, that you insert a provision that makes it clear that no right or liberty referred to in Clause 8 confers a right to pollute water or air, to contaminate soil, or destroy significant indigenous biodiversity. That would make it clear that you're not accidentally creating a right to do something in respect of the environment that I don't think you are. And look, I think you could simply do this. Why not ask the minister or just ask the minister to indicate if he does envisage that there's a right to pollute. Now, if he says yes, you've got a problem. But if, as I suspect, he'll say no, that's not the intention, then the simple insertion that I'm proposing will at least provide some limitation on what a politically appointed board could then get up to and offer opinions on. So that's my simple one-sentence way of suggesting that if you decide to proceed with the bill, and I don't think it's a sensible way forward. My lengthy submissions have given you a lot of detail. Hope you had the time to read them. I indicated that I thought about half an hour would be needed for the long one, but this submission to you is a shorter one. But I think that if you were to at least make it quite clear there's no right or liberty to pollute, then I think we'd at least put one line in the sand. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Upton. We're going to go to Dr. Deborah Russell.
Simon, thank you for this really great submission. It was enjoyable reading. Look, I'm looking at page 3 of your longer submission rather than the covering one. And right at the bottom, you talk about the focus on individual rights and liberties. We had a couple of submitters yesterday who suggested that this bill was not ideological at all. But I get quite a different feeling from your submission, that you see it as having quite a libertarian flavour. Do you have any comment to make on that?
I think inevitably, when you talk about rights and liberties and what their limits are, you are going to get straight into an ideological or a values-driven debate. I mean, rights and liberties are a creature of our legal, development. I say our, the British law world we come from. I mean, a lot of this stuff goes back into the 17th and 18th century. Extremely interesting. And these things are real. I mean, we would, all of us, I think, say, yep, I've got a right to this. I'm free to do that. But of course, these have all had to be tested in our political environment. And when it comes to the physical environment, of course, rights have actually, by first the courts and then Parliament, been cut back because we're living in a complex society. We're living on top of one another. There's all sorts of externalities. And the solutions there, I wouldn't say that they're ideological. They're normally practical solutions. What worries me about a bill like this is it suddenly brings right up to the front rights and liberties to use property, and says nothing about the other resources that are out there which are managed publicly. There's always going to be a boundary. And so I think if you want to talk in this language, then you have to delimit what that boundary is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vanushi Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. You make the point in your submission that the case for the proposed bill is explained to be a need to improve productivity, but you say this is not addressed in the proposed principles. Is it possible, Commissioner, that if the bill's passed the way it currently reads, that it could actually do the opposite in terms of decreasing productivity?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but look, can I just be very clear about one point? You're referring to my very original lengthy submission, and indeed I was quoting the minister and saying the point of this bill is about productivity. In fact, subsequently, the ministry's regulatory impact statement makes it clear that's not the reason. So there's been a bit of a change over time. So I want to be clear that in the submission I'm making to you today, I'm not basing my argument on that. I mean, poor regulation will cause a loss to productivity. I'm the first to agree with that, and heavens above, those of us who've had to deal with the Resource Management Act over the years know that there has been a quantity of bad regulation which has caused people all sorts of frustrations. So no one's trying to deny that. The question is whether this bill is going to make it any better. And I think the idea that you have some group off to the side who apparently don't have any power, but they can just sort of comment on how bad things are. Frankly, I think that's what Parliament's for. I think it's what your select committee's for. If stuff's getting in the way, it's for select committees to put the spotlight on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Upton, we've got a couple of minutes if you want to make some closing remarks. We'd like to hear them.
Well, look, I don't want to take more time that's needed because I really just want to make this point to you. I don't think the bill should proceed for the reasons I've said at a great length, and there's no way I could say that in 10 minutes. But look, if you do decide, I really don't think there is any harm at all in saying that nothing in Clause 8 confers a right to pollute water or air or contaminate soil or destroy significant biodiversity. I mean, making that statement, I think, would give quite a lot of people who are concerned about the bill at least some comfort that, yep, no, it's not intended to do that. There's a whole world that lies outside of individual rights and liberties, and they are just as important, and this bill isn't trying to undermine them, at least in respect to the environment. I commend it to you. You get your law drafters to tell you whether I've used the right words. You might come up with something more polished, but I think it would provide a very clear statement about what the bill doesn't intend.
Okay, no, thank you, members. Any other further questions? Otherwise, we'll call it a wrap there. Thank you for coming in, broadcasting live from the Waikato, Mr. Upton. Thank you for all your considerable work that you've been putting in as Commissioner since 2017, and only 2 years to go. So we wish you all the very best, and thank you again for your extensive submissions.
Thank you.